Welcome, everybody, to our first info session for our brand new one-time grant program, the Arts Thrive Grant Program. Like I said, first of our info sessions we'll be doing today at 1 now. And then again, we'll have an in-person one at 6 p.m. This evening here at City Arts. That's 334 North Mead for you playing along at home. So my name is Jesse Koza. I'm going to be going through all of this information for you today. I'm the Cultural Arts Administrator. See, I should have waited 60 more seconds. I am the Cultural Arts Administrator for the City of Wichita. I work in the Division of Arts and Cultural Services. With us also in the meeting today is Lindsay Banaka, Director of Arts and Cultural Services. And then we have a few members of the Cultural Funding Committee who will be reading through all of these grants on the call as well. So if there are questions that they would be better suited to answer toward the end of my presentation, I will absolutely throw it over to them. Like I said, welcome to our first info session here for the Arts Thrive Grant Program. Just want to give a quick shout out to local artist Evan Yazzie, who did the art that you're seeing here on the screen. It is from our 2024-2028 Cultural Arts Strategic Plan. You can find Evan's work at graphicsed.com. And that didn't want to work. Great. So the first thing that I want to say is that this info session is not meant to be a substitute for reading the guidelines. So if you are interested in applying to the Arts Thrive Grant Program, please just read the guidelines. It's not that long. I did spend a lot of time working on them, and so it would mean a lot to me if you would be as informed as I now am. I tried to make them brief, but I will go over a lot of the information today. But again, if I forget to say something that's in the guidelines, that's on you. I'm asking you to read the guidelines. So, who we are. Division of Arts and Cultural Services. We are a local art agency that supports and advances the arts in our community. Our mission is to ensure everyone has equitable access to cultural arts opportunities by activating and strengthening the creative potential of our community. And our vision is that Wichita is recognized as a community where artistic expression is an integral part of the city's success, arts thrive, and cultural heritage is preserved and celebrated. And those last two, our mission and vision statement, are from our 2024-2028 Cultural Arts Strategic Plan that was recently passed by our City Council. That is available on our website, wichita.gov/arts. We'd encourage you all to check that out to learn a bit more. So, a background about this program. Like I said, new program, one-time funding. We are not planning to offer this grant for 2026 projects. This funding is for 2025. It's possible that it could be back for 2027, but we don't have that money right now, so we're not going to guarantee it. So please, if a year from now you say, oh, didn't that grant come up about now? Well, it's not going to happen. Not for 2026 at least. This grant is funded by the National Endowment for the Arts, and we're going to offer $25,000 grants, 3 of them. We received $75,000 from the National Endowment for the Arts for subgranting, and so this program is to figure out who we are going to subgrant this money to. And the program itself, like I've been talking about our new Cultural Arts Strategic Plan, the program was designed to fit within that new plan. So this list is ripped pretty much straight from the NEA's Grants for Arts Projects page. So it's not meant to be exhaustive. It may very well be exhaustive. If you can find a type of art that doesn't fit in these categories, I'd love to know about it. What we're trying to say here is that there's a lot of stuff that you could do with these funds, and we would love, if you're uncertain, we would love to chat with you about your idea and how it could fit. Some examples of projects that you could fund include special events, lectures, artist residencies already listed there, public art, film productions, various performances. But things that we can't fund include, but aren't limited to, projects that are capital in nature, projects that do not serve the residents of Wichita, and projects involving historical or archaeological sites that do not follow the National Historic Preservation Act. And that is a condition of our NEA grant funding. If you have something that you think might involve something on the National Historic Preservation, having to do with the National Historic Preservation Act, please let us know, because we're going to have to figure that out as we go through it. But again, a lot that you can do with these funds. If you're at all on the fence as to whether or not you can do what you want to do with the funding, just reach out. I'm happy to chat with you. Lindsay and I throw ideas back and forth at each other all the time. We will talk it to death on your behalf. So, project and applicant eligibility. Individual artists, groups of artists, or nonprofit organizations are all welcome to apply for this funding. Organizations can also partner together, so it could be a nonprofit organization group, a group of organizations. I don't know how many times I can say organization. Businesses, so businesses without nonprofit status, you're going to have to partner with a nonprofit organization or an individual artist in order to access the funding. But we're not just out and out saying no businesses. It is a condition of this funding that you need to have that nonprofit status or be an individual artist. So if you're one of our for-profit organizations in town, one of our partner orgs, you are going to need to find a group to be part of if you want to apply for the funding. Projects can be of any size or scope. So it can be a $100,000 idea that you have that we chip into. It can be a $10,000 idea that you have that we can cover the cost of. We'll get in a little bit more later as to what we're looking to do, but we're not saying it can't be anything from 10,000 to 10 million. It's just the grant is 25, and we have certain things that we're looking for, and I'll get to that in a slide or two. You do not need to add funds or match the funding that is provided by this grant. So if your idea is just a $25,000 idea, it's fine if this grant covers all of it. In fact, that's something that we're looking at as a strong contender for this funding. Again, the project has to serve the residents of Wichita, and anyone directly employed by the city of Wichita is ineligible to receive this funding. So it's anybody directly employed by the city departments, so the Parks Department can't apply, or city-owned operations. So City Arts can't apply, Old Cowtown Museum can't apply. There are some individual folks at those places who probably can, folks who are part-timers. And of course, a lot of our organizations have support organizations, friends of the blank, who likely would be able to apply. But again, if you're ever curious as to whether or not you can, feel free to reach out. I just had somebody reach out this morning, and we will figure it out and get back to you. So we've got two special considerations we're looking at as part of this funding. The first is projects that are woman-led, LGBTQ+ led, BIPOC, ALANA-led, or will serve those same communities. And as a member of the Cultural Funding Committee pointed out, it'd be good to have a definition. So we created a pretty broad definition for that for our purposes for this first time we're doing this funding. So if an organization is currently led or was founded by a member of that community, if 51% of the board of directors identifies as a member of that community, or if the organization identifies as specifically serving or representing that community, we would count you as one of those organizations that receives special consideration for these projects. Obviously, at least 51% of the board of directors. And then individuals or groups of individuals who self-identify in those one of those groups, they'll be given the same consideration. It's not just organizations. But that's the first special consideration that we're looking at. The second is projects that are within the $25,000 to $50,000 range. So we'd really love if these grants went toward projects that were mostly funded or solely funded by this granting opportunity. It's great if you have a $250,000 project that you want to apply for this opportunity. You are more than welcome to do so, and you might write an incredible application and absolutely get the grant. We would just love if anyone has an idea that would fall in that $25,000 to $50,000 range. We are encouraging folks to apply there, and as part of that special consideration, both the underserved communities consideration and this size consideration, those applicants will earn some additional bonus points during the Cultural Funding Committee's review process, which we'll get to that process a little later in my small presentation here. But those are our two big things that we're really hoping to hit with this. But again, if you hit one, if you hit neither, it doesn't mean don't apply. It just means, really have that great application. So receiving the funding. Let's say you're selected as one of the three organizations. After your contract is finalized, and that's something we will work on with you as part of this process. Subrecipients, that's used as subgranting, so you'd be a subrecipient. You can receive your funding as a lump sum. So there's not going to be necessarily in this project, you have to spend all $25,000 and then ask for a reimbursement. We're going to just give you the money so that you can do what you need to do with it to really give you the freedom and the confidence and support to do the art that you do so well. That said, the funding can only be used for authorized purposes. What are authorized purposes? Those are what you're contracted to do. So if you receive the grant and your application said you were going to build a statue in the middle of Old Town, well, your contract would say this money is to be used toward building a statue in the middle of Old Town. That is your authorized purpose. So any funds that aren't used for that purpose would need to be returned to us. Probably not going to be the case, just something that I have to say. Now, 10% of the grant can be allocated to help cover salary, a facility cost, utility costs, or other applicable costs. These are known as indirect costs. And for the vast majority of folks who apply to this grant, it would be at 10%. So if you apply for $25,000 and you get $25,000, $22,500 can go toward these extra costs, paying yourself, covering rent if you have rent for necessary to do your art, or utility payments, etc. Some organizations have agreements with the federal government that changes that percentage. We'll get into that in a case-by-case basis. But if this is the first time you're ever hearing about this, then 10% is what it would be for you. So these funds, like I sort of said at the beginning, they're programmatic funds. They're meant to make art. The city does offer operational grants. That opportunity just closed for 2025, but if you really need help keeping the lights on at your organization, feel free to reach out after this presentation and we can help talk you through that process and when the next grant opportunity would open for that. So a very brief timeline for you. We've already passed it. Applications open. Hooray. September 4th, that's the first grant information session. Here we are. October 1st, applications are due by 11:59 p.m. So they're due by 11:59 on October 1st. So it's not 11:59, September 30th. You do get that one additional day, October 1st, to finish up your application. October 1st, I believe, is actually a Tuesday, so you get the weekend plus Monday and Tuesday to finish up that application. And I've done plenty of grant writing myself, and knowing that it's not due Sunday at 5 is always very helpful to me. So I try to extend that grace to other people. So October 1st, applications are due by 11:59. It is an automatic shutoff on our platform. So please try to be done well before 11:59. December 3rd, we will announce our awardees. In that meantime, the Cultural Funding Committee will review and select finalists. Well, they'll select the folks who win the award. And then we're anticipating around January 30th, 2025, funding will be available for your projects. The period of performance for this grant is 2025, January 1 to December 31. But we're hoping that funding will be available starting January 30th. So I want to talk about the application for a little bit, because I worked very hard to make this as accessible as possible to as many people, as many types of learners as possible. I followed a lot of universal guides for learning, did a lot of research just on how to make this as helpful as possible. So at the very top, there are what you might know as directory questions: your name, your address, the name, if you've got an organization, what that name is. After those directory questions, you'll be asked how you want to answer the rest of the questions on the application. And there are 3 ways to answer. You can write your answers, so via text. You can record a video, or you can record audio answering these questions. Now, unfortunately, due to the nature of the platform, it's really difficult to get it to switch back and forth. So once you've made that selection of text, video, or audio, you're pretty much locked in for the meat of the application, except for the budget, which you can go back to writing about via text, even if you chose audio or video. Unfortunately, for the text side, you can't then go, I want to talk about my budget via audio or video. It's all, if you choose text, it's all text. Me, I'm a big writer. I love writing, so I'd be like, yes, just give me the box and I will put my words in it. There are no time limits or character limits on these questions. That is to make sure that folks who have plenty to say have the opportunity to say it. They may not know how to self-edit. But we do encourage each applicant to provide as much detail as possible while remaining organized and focused. You have to remember, you're going to have 11 likely strangers to you reading or listening or watching these applications, and you want to make sure that your application is compelling and informative while not going on at length, which is something I'm struggling with right now in this presentation. So I do want to say very quickly, though, while there is no time limit for the video recordings, there is a size limit for the application. So the application itself cannot be over 800 megabytes in size, which, if you're recording 4K video off of your phone, can go very quickly. There are ways on your phone or other recording devices to knock down the resolution that you're recording in, which extends the amount of time that you can record in that space. If you need help with that, please reach out to city staff. We'll be glad to help you with that. If you absolutely cannot get your video to a size that the application will allow you to upload it, we will figure out some way to get around that. But I really don't want that to be the norm. Please try, if you can, to record via video and get it all done inside the application. That just makes it easier and cleaner for our Cultural Funding Committee to later review. I tested it myself. It's a solid 15 minutes at least that I could get on my phone using those time frames. So hopefully you can make your whole argument inside that 15 minutes. If not, again, we will figure it out. So the meat of the application, the first question asks, how does your project connect to the division's mission and the city's new cultural arts strategic plan? Now, these dots here are the options that you have to choose from. These are some of our strategies that we have identified in the cultural plan, and these are the ones that we think fit most closely with what you can do in this grant program. So one of our goals is to incentivize community partners to develop new artwork. Well, if you're going to use this grant opportunity to develop new artwork, well, that aligns very well and very easily. If you want to take whatever you do and get it into zip codes that are not as well serviced by our arts community, well, that sounds like you're ensuring cultural arts opportunities are provided across the city. If you don't know how to answer that question, let me know. I'll help you. But again, we do have that option at the bottom, other. That is there if you think none of these really fit. I'm going to take a look at the cultural plan myself and find a moment in that plan that matches what I'm doing. You will get an opportunity to explain your other answer if you choose other, but I think that these first six options will likely cover the vast majority of applications that we receive. So this is where do you want to do text, audio, or video would come in. First, it's just describe your project. And we have a lot of suggested questions to answer as part of that. Does your project have a physical location? If so, where? You know, it's just, we want to tease as much information out of you as possible. So you don't have to answer all of these sub questions, but they're just there to help you get more detail into your application. And again, you'll see this final dot here. You will be able to upload images or other documents at the end of the application. So if you're like me, you're a big text person, but you still have past work of yours that you want to show, you can write out all your answers and then at the end, upload some images, small videos, other things at the end of the application. That still does count toward that 800 megabyte cap that I mentioned. So again, we're just going to have to be clever in how we figure that out. So there's only 3 of these. I'm not going to go through, an hour's worth of questions. Describe how you would go from receiving the grant to completing your finished work. That's your timeline. What does your timeline look like? But I'm writing it so that anybody can understand it, right? How would you go from receiving $25,000 to getting to whatever you finish? And again, we have some suggested questions and some reminders. Are you going to partner with somebody? Well, a partnership doesn't have to be the whole time. Is your partnership just to develop what the dance would look like, and then you've got other partnerships to help get the dance in front of people who need to see it? At the very end, we say just flat out, what is your timeline? How long will everything take you? What are the steps along the way? Again, just trying to tease as much information out as we can. That way we can make the most informed decisions possible. Final question that I'm going to go over. Describe how you plan to use the funds for the project. And I say this again in the application, but I'm going to say it again here. This is an incredibly important section of the application. We have people on the Cultural Funding Committee who are on the Cultural Funding Committee simply because they are financial people. Like, it's required that we have financial people there. And so we want to make sure that you are giving us as much information as you can. But again, if you are not comfortable putting numbers into a spreadsheet to represent your budget, you don't have to do that. You can answer this question about your budget via video, via audio, via text. If it's just not your strength, you don't have to be forced to do it. And so please don't be afraid. The fact that we're asking about your budget, the fact that we say it's important, it doesn't mean if numbers aren't your thing, don't do it. It just means use what your strengths are, being passionate about your work, speaking clearly, and showing that you have the knowledge of how to do this to talk about how you're going to use this money. And again, I say here, while it isn't necessary to use all of the grant, all $25,000, projects that do are more likely to be selected because they get that special consideration up to a certain point. Again, you can select how you want to enter this information. If you don't want to talk about it on video, you can put the numbers in. And no matter how you decide you want to do this, if you want to do numbers in a spreadsheet, text, video, you upload your own document, a text box will appear to allow you to explain the numbers. So you don't have to just count on the fact that we know what you mean when you say performers X amount of money. You can say, I'm allocating X amount of money for 8 dancers, and then go into it a little bit more perhaps. This is based on such and such and such. But again, we do have to ask about the budget. It is very important, but how you choose to respond absolutely can be done in a way that plays to your strengths. I said that was the last question. I lied a little bit. Why do you feel your project should be selected? This is unscored. It's not required. You're not going to lose points for leaving it blank. But if we get to the end and there are 7 projects that are great, we may look at this question and say, you know, this person makes a very compelling argument for why it should be selected. And my vote is to vote for this application. So, you know, I recommend you answer it as sincerely as possible, if you can. If you don't feel like it, you don't have to. But again, unscored, not required. I just recommend putting something. And besides, it's a good practice for your elevator pitch for this project if you don't get selected, but you still want to do it. It's a great way to practice how you would convince somebody else to help give you the money. We're on the final third of my presentation, so we're getting there, folks. Thank you all for hanging in with me. Each application that meets the guidelines will be reviewed by the Cultural Funding Committee. So city staff will look at your applications. I will look at it probably several times. If you don't meet the guidelines, I will probably check in with you to try to get you to meet the guidelines. And then I'll kick as many applications as I can to the Cultural Funding Committee for review. They're going to look at these 8 things I've listed. We're going to talk about numbers 5 and 6 here in a moment. The first 4 are those questions that I've gone over. And so your answers to those will be a big part of the score. Considerations, 7 and 8, small part of the score, just a couple bonus points. Artistic merit and artistic excellence are there because these are government funds. Because these are from the National Endowment for the Arts, we are required to have artistic merit and artistic excellence as, pieces of our rubric. Artistic excellence, quality of the artists and other key individuals, creative process, works of art, organizations, arts education providers, artistic partners, and or services involved in the project and their relevance to the audience or communities the project aims to serve. And to be honest, the vast majority of folks are probably going to hit artistic excellence. It is really kind of a subjective question, but again, this is new to Wichita's granting process, so I'm going over it just to make sure everybody's aware it's going to happen. Artistic merit, the value and appropriateness of the project to the organization, including their mission, field, audience, and so on. Can you carry out the project? Do you have clearly defined goals and or proposed outcomes? Is there evidence of direct compensation to artists? Now, if you're the only artist, evidence of direct compensation to you, right? Engagement with individuals whose opportunities are limited. And the ability to strengthen the arts sector. I want to speak about that very quickly. It is longer than the actual document. I just didn't want to write the whole thing out on our PowerPoint. Ability to strengthen the arts sector through knowledge sharing and resources. So if your project broadens the arts sector in Wichita as a whole, and is definitely of interest as far as artistic merit of the project goes. Final selection. The Cultural Funding Committee, it's a 11-member group made up of locals from Wichita. There are 7 appointees from City Council, 1 each from the districts, and then 1 for the mayor. And then the Arts Council, our partners, they pick the remaining 4 seats, and they pick who the chair is. They will vote to decide which projects, if any, earn funding. We expect that projects will earn funding. We just have to say if any, because it could be that we get 3 applicants and none of them are actually great, or none of them follow the guidelines. So it's just, we just have to put that little bit of uncertainty in there. The committee is encouraged to select projects that are varied based on their medium and other qualities. So we don't necessarily want to come out of this with 3 murals. We'd love to see a mural, a dance piece, and a lecture, or something along those lines. We just want some variety. We want some diversity in who receives the awards and the type of art that is represented by those applications. And the projects selected based on scoring and the ensuing discussion. That is our usual MO with the Cultural Funding Committee. And then I added this at the bottom just to be clear. The 3 awardees may not represent the 3 highest scoring applications. Again, if our top 3 scoring applications are murals, but the guidelines that we've written say the committee should not, or should try not to, select 3 murals, well, then they may not be able to select all 3 murals. So it's just one of those things where if you look back at the end and you say, well, why didn't these 3 get it? Well, the committee's hands were tied by other things in the guidelines. But if those are 3 fabulous murals, maybe we do 3 murals, who knows? Completing the project. So we're going to be in contact with you throughout the entire process, the entire period of performance. We're not going to be breathing down your neck, but we're going to stay in contact and make sure that things are going well, funding is being spent correctly, your timelines are being followed, or we're being updated when changes need to be made. We will ask you to track attendance data. It's a little bit more specific in the guidelines themselves, but again, we'll work with you. That's something that we need to send back to the NEA based on who we select as these subrecipients. So you get the data, we collate it all, and then we send it to the NEA. And then you'll be required to close out the project no later than March 31st, 2026. That really just means that we've got all the reports that we need. And if for some reason you haven't used all of the grant, we'll be requiring you to return anything you haven't spent by March 31st, 2026. City staff will probably work with you to make sure that it all does get spent, but if for whatever reason it doesn't, again, March 31st, 2026 is the absolute end date for all of these projects. And again, I said earlier, period of performance, so when these things happen, calendar year 2025. Terms and conditions. You don't want to read them yourself, so I'll read them to you. You'll need to follow the regulations as provided by the National Endowment for the Arts. This is an additional document, but it basically says what I've said today. It will, if it's not already, it will be linked on our website and on the Submittable website, so you can just check it out. It's a little bit more legalese than what I've gone through today. You have to confirm that you are not barred from working with the federal government, things like that. If the work that you create as part of this grant can be copyrighted, you will own that copyright. The City of Wichita will own a license to use the work for our own promotion as necessary, but you will own the base copyright of the work. And again, projects supported by this grant are subject to the National Historic Preservation Act. That protects historic and archaeological sites. If you think that your project is going to affect something like that, let me know so that we can be on top of that and work with you to make sure that you are following the Preservation Act so that you have the best chance of earning the money. There are a few more terms and conditions in the guidelines, but those are the most important ones to all of us right now. All right, so I'm going to close this here in a moment, and we're happy to answer any questions that folks may have. If you want to ask questions later, feel free to contact me. Again, I'm Jesse Koza, Cultural Arts Administrator. My email is jkoza@wichita.gov. If you want to call me, that number is 316-350-3241. If you want to text me, I do have a Google number you can text. That is 316-290-9197. But again, these videos will be online, and I believe that information is in the guidelines. So if you need to look it up, just follow the link to the guidelines, and you can find those numbers. You can call me, or you can text me, or email, whatever you'd like. Smoke signals, I'll figure it out. One more time. This is the Arts Thrive Grant Program. Again, I'm Jesse Koza. Lindsay Benaka, Director of Arts and Cultural Services, is here as well as some members of the Cultural Funding Committee. I'd like to one more time point out the amazing work by Evan Yassey, graphiccd.com. Very thankful for all his help with the 2024-2028 Cultural Arts Strategic Plan art that he did that I am shamelessly using here. And now, with that said, I will happily take any questions if there are any.